Are you ready to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports? Now on with the show!
The Joe Mays J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which has been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years. You are listening to the Joe Mays J-Raff Show.
Boring.
A weekly podcast about sports since 2011.
Don't you ever get tired of being wrong all the time?
With a focus on football.
Kansas City 31, San Francisco 20. Mahomes takes the snap. He is just going to throw it long for Demarcus Robinson. It is going to use up all the time. The game is over, and the Chiefs' kingdom has firmly planted its flag on top of football's highest summit. The Kansas City Chiefs are champions of Super Bowl 54.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff. Good evening and welcome everyone to the Joe Mays J-Raff Show. This is episode 301. And if you're watching, you can tell it is just me in the studio, but it is not because Justin isn't with us. It just means that he's not here in person. You know, this whole county on lockdown and social distancing stuff. We got to abide by it's not technically, I guess, law, but what would you say, Justin? It's just strongly encouraged with punishment?
Yeah, and I would feel I'd feel a bit out of place when I sit here and criticize everybody who thinks they know better than the experts, and then go act like I know better than the experts. That might not be the best strategy I wanna do. So they say stay home, I'll stay home.
Yeah, there was a lot of optional stuff going on when we did this a week ago. It was mostly about large groups and crowds. Berks County was not in the stay-at-home order, so we felt comfortable doing it at that time. And things got worse throughout the week, as I'm sure many of you are aware. So we just thought it was in our best interest to abide by the government ordinances and, like Justin said, listen to experts and just steer clear of one another, just to play it safe and be respectful and hopefully remain healthy, which we both are, and I believe everyone we know is healthy. So that's a positive. Okay, so this evening we're going to be talking about a topic just kind of off the top of my head and trying to figure out what we wanted to discuss here on episode 301. You know, last week we did football talk, surprise, surprise, and we kind of surprised everyone at the beginning by bringing on Chad Henne via the phone to talk about the CBA and NFL free agency, knowing that he had re-signed with the Kansas City Chiefs for another 2-year tour. So, again, congratulations to him, and we thank him for joining us for episode 300. This week, we're going to change it up with kind of a hypothetical proposal that's, it's been bandied about from time to time. I think I saw it during last football season maybe, but the potential for NFL realignment, I think it came up in the fall because of the rumors that Jacksonville may be heading to London in the next few years. I don't know, Justin, did you hear anything? Was that addressed in the CBA at all, an international team?
I think the only thing that was mentioned was that I think they kind of leveled the playing field there a little bit in terms of, like, no team is going to play, like, more than a set number. It might be, like, 2 games a season over there or something like that. I think I'd seen language addressing that type of issue. I did not see anything that would lead it to that case. I did read an article, and I'd have to look it up because I don't even remember who it was from, but like an article maybe at the beginning of last season or so that went through and listed about 100 reasons why, even though they think the NFL would love it, why they don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
Okay.
That a team would move to London. And it was all like the business side of things.
Right.
Which is honestly, that's the reason. It's not going to be like if it happens or doesn't happen, it's going to be for the business reasons. It's not going to be because, fans in Pennsylvania or fans, what I mean? It's going to be strictly business will determine that.
Yeah.
So I don't think anything was specifically addressed, but we shall see.
Yeah, I don't know what the future holds in that regard. So the thing that we're about to talk about here, NFL realignment, just has all the teams in their same location as they are going to be for the 2020 season. And we know that a few teams have shifted in recent years, and one team shifted this year. The Raiders have left Oakland and are in Las Vegas, which is an interesting thing all in of itself. They were supposed to host the draft this year, and because of the coronavirus situation, they're still, I guess, are they still technically hosting it? Is anything being done in Las Vegas, or is it all being remote?
You know what? I don't really know. My guess is it's going to be remote. I honestly don't even know. I don't know how, if you're not putting on the production, there's really no need for it to be in Las Vegas.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but then I caught myself because I was like, you know what? I'm not sure.
Right. I mean, I guess if you have, in theory, Goodell and some executives could fly out there on their private planes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, which is certainly a different dynamic, but you still need like a television production crew, I would imagine. So
you would think.
I would think that is probably, well, maybe not. I was going to say that might be easier from the New York location, but honestly, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't give much of thought if anything was going to be happening in Vegas. I guess I would think not. Like, what's the point? Couldn't you just all do honestly, this from?
Right. I would rather them not, and then put Vegas back on the list, to go back there relatively soon. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be an awesome spectacle. The draft has really blown up into this huge, awesome event.
Oh yeah, huge.
It would be cool to do it in Vegas when you can do it to the scale that it deserves.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. So we'll see how that happens. But yeah, the Raiders have officially moved to Vegas. They are now the Las Vegas Raiders. And that's really the only movement. I mean, we got lots of new logos and new uniforms and new colors and stuff being debuted. I think there's at least a handful, if not more, debuting new logos and or new colors and uniforms, like the Chargers and Rams for sure. The Patriots are tweaking. The Bucks. I feel like there was I guess I don't know if the Raiders are changing anything other than their home name, but a lot of things here and there, if you're interested in that type of stuff, is changing. But things not changing, at least in the foreseeable future, are divisions and conferences. But we're here to just throw a proposal on the table. It's really my proposal that I was going to surprise Justin with, but because he couldn't be here with me, I sent it to him ahead of time just so that he could pull it up and look at it as we discuss it. So my proposal here, and I have an image of it. Let me pull it up. This completely blows up the way the NFL operates. I had pretty much completely disregarded the current divisions and conferences because to me, to make sense for travel and whatnot, because of the absolute East Coast bias that most professional sports leagues favor for a variety of reasons, not just population, you can't group too many teams out west. There's only a grand total of like 8, maybe 11 if you're including Minnesota, Dallas, and Houston, west of the dividing line there. That's like halfway through the country, depending on where you divide it. So barely a third of the teams even qualify for that. Everyone else is on the East. So it was kind of tough. But the way I went about it was almost purely geographical, trying to see what makes the most sense. I nearly completely made irrelevant the current division setup, and especially did not care one bit about rivalries. And I know that's a huge issue for many teams and fans, but it's happened before where you had new teams being added, other things being moved around, and they didn't quite fix it. So since they're going to 17 games here, either next year or the year after, next year as in 2021, or the following year would be my guess, the latest time the 17-game regular season would start. now is the time to change things, better align things, and perhaps create some new rivalries. So I drew on a map. I sent this to Justin, and this is something that probably will not happen, but I thought it would be fun to rename the divisions instead of doing the compass directions after big-time coaches from one of the teams in the division. So like they're most historic coaches in NFL history. The only ones that I didn't include were obvious because they already have names on trophies. So you're not going to find Lombardi. You're not going to find, I should say, it was coaches, owners, like people important in NFL, AFL lore. Those are the people I considered. So Lombardi, obviously, already on the trophy, the biggest trophy, the most important trophy in all of pro football. And Hunt already has his name on the trophy. And, who's the NFC? Because I had him as a division name, and then I was like, oh, wait, he's already on the NFC trophy, and now I can't remember. But anyways, this is what I came up with.
George Halas.
Yes, Halas. That's right. Yep. Chicago. So I didn't do Lombardi, Halas, or Hunt. So this is what I came up with. The circles are the new divisions. And Justin, you can see maybe the first thing you noticed. Well, I shouldn't say the first thing because I'm sure you looked at Philadelphia first. But the next thing you might have looked at large was that the NFC North stays together completely. And they're the only one that happened to.
Right. I did notice that there are a couple where 3 of the 4 have, stay. And then there's one that, kind of would have switched. But it's interesting because when you look at it, a lot of those, a lot of the one-off, as I would maybe refer to them, as it currently exists because of the movement of teams from before. You know what I mean? You look at some of the teams, just for example, like the Rams, for example. I know they were in the West, but they were out there, and then they moved. They were in the Midwest, and then they moved back. So a lot of those were kind of left over from an old system. You know, they never really. I know they did revamp it at one point, but we've had movement and changes in teams since then. So, geographically, honestly, it seems to make a lot of sense.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, you do point out that I could possibly make it a little bit easier for people to understand or get behind if I would flip flop the Chargers and Cardinals, which you could easily do. It's not that big a deal.
Honestly, but I kind of like it the way it is.
But I feel like it makes the geographical rivals then more important, like the 2 LA teams playing twice a year. Maybe they'll actually sell out a stadium then.
Right. They should absolutely have to play in they should be in the same division. I think that would be awesome. I was thinking something also. It would be cool. Again, this is just a crazy out there idea, just because we're talking about out there ideas. But if your team wins the division, you should get to rename the division for the next year.
Well, that was that was one of the things that people. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. So if the Eagles won,
the Vermeil division,
they could make it the Vermeil division, or the
Buddy Ryan,
the team, right? Buddy Ryan, you can make it whatever you want. Did you take contemporary issues in high school?
No.
Okay. So Mr. Conway taught.
Yeah, I never had Mr. Conway.
We had this ongoing Jeopardy game. It was this current events and news stuff. But if you swept a category, you got to rename the category, right?
Nice.
So I could have so there was always a sports category, sports and entertainment kind of thing. It was set up kind of like Trivia Pursuit, but if you swept it, you got to rename it. I feel like that would be cool. And maybe it isn't just winning the division. Maybe it's if you win the Super Bowl, you get to rename your division or something. You know what I mean? But it would be cool just to have that going around. Think about how long New England would have gotten to name whatever they want. But just I don't know, why not? You know what I mean? Right now it's the NFC East. So it's not there's prestige in the name.
Right. that's what I was thinking back to when hockey used to do it. You know, they used to have the conferences had names or the divisions
Yeah.
had names. You know, it was just cool. They had different things happen. It kind of made it made it different, and it was fun. And I just
Right.
thought that would be cool for the NFL to do.
There might be something wrong with my picture. I do not see leaders and legends as names of divisions.
Yeah, that was the runner-up. That was runner-up. So you know, you can't please everyone.
Deep dive where people listening probably don't even know.
Yeah, they're probably like, "What are they talking about?" That's probably what they're like every week we're on here. But you know,
Fair point.
so did anything else jump out to you that you liked, didn't like, or just surprised it worked like that? Or
So you pretty much nailed it exactly right. I immediately looked to see where the Eagles were, and then I immediately saw that the NFC North stayed the same. But when you're going from a geographical standpoint, that one makes a lot of sense. I also look at one and I'm like, man, you want to talk about a division where I just don't really care a whole lot. You're probably looking at the Gibbs division and the Shula division. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just from now, to be clear, as soon as the games start and there's meaningful football, I'm gonna get invested in all of those. You know what I mean? Tom Brady's in Tampa, there's a million things that I would get interested in. But when I look, I'm like, man, between those two divisions, especially if the Redskins are not in the Eagles division, I'm like, I don't really care about them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Honestly, the only reason I care about them right now is because they're in the Eagles division. It's not because they're good. No, Ron Rivera's there. He'll probably turn it around.
Right.
If Snyder can get out of the way. But I look at the Colts, they're an interesting story. But again, the Dolphins, I kind of have always had a soft spot for, just in the sense of my mom always liked the Dolphins when I was growing up. So most of that because Shula went there, and Shula has the Baltimore roots and everything.
Right.
But, it's definitely not because you're a Dolphins fan. But
no, I understand that.
But so I look at those, but I look at some of the other ones. Honestly, that Walsh division, Seattle, San Francisco, and the Rams, which is already in existence, but you add the Chargers in, I think that would be exciting. I really think that would be exciting. I think it would be exciting, that Stram division with the Raiders in Las Vegas, and then you have the Broncos and the Chiefs, and you have Kyler Murray and stuff down in Arizona. I think that would be pretty cool.
Do you, when you saw how I had it with the names, did that have any impact at all when you first saw it?
What was that?
The names of the division, did that catch you off guard, or what were you thinking about that?
Once I looked at it, it wasn't bad at all. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I was just moving rooms. But I like the name idea. Some of them, I had to go through and just think, but they all make sense, and I kind of like the idea, especially if we're going to start over and redo the whole thing. Why not change it?
Right. And there was a few divisions that I struggled at first off the top of my head figuring out what to call them. I didn't want to. I was hesitant to call the NFC North Lambeau because they already have Lambeau Field. But when I knew I wasn't using Lombardi, and actually I had it as Hallis first before I realized that he was already a trophy.
Right.
So then I was like, well, what do I do? But then I looked at over the coaches, and I was like, well, there's no really other Packers or Bears coach that stands. I mean, I could have gone with Ditka, I guess, possibly because of his player roots too. But I was leaning more towards pro football originators and big time coaches, and everyone knows Ditka, but Vikings and Lions, I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do. So I felt like Lambeau was the next logical choice there.
Only thing, one of the things that popped in my head pretty quickly was that I was like, I completely get why it's the Parcells division, but I'm like, that is a shoo-in to eventually be the Belichick division, right? It has to be.
Yeah, but I made it a point to not have any active
No,
people.
I completely.
But it just worked too
Completely
perfectly. He coached 3 of the 4 teams, like it, and
Right.
he's
No,
one of the all-time
absolutely.
winningest coaches in pro football.
Absolutely.
So,
But one of the other things, like we mentioned, the 2 LA teams that are going to share a stadium being in the same division, putting the New York teams in the same division. Heck yes.
right?
Heck yes. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's what I just think a lot of it makes a lot of sense, and you can tweak it here and there, but I
By the
think it
way,
works.
My biggest gripe, and I may be jumping the gun.
Yeah,
here a
because
little bit,
we're gonna. I know what you're gonna say, and we're gonna address it. But go
okay.
ahead. No, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No. We'll save it.
Are you talking about
Um,
the rivalry?
No. I'm talking about how my life would be miserable with those current with your
with
divisional life.
Baltimore and Pittsburgh. No, yeah, you go. Yeah, I know. But just like
Every time my team would win, I would lose. You understand that, right? Like,
right, because you got your mom the Ravens fan, your wife the Steelers fan, and one of your best friends the Browns fan.
right, exactly. I mean, the Browns won. At least you're throwing us a bone there, right?
Right, like he's already self-deprecating about it, so it's not a huge deal. So you can guarantee
Exactly.
yourself 2 wins a year right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Parcells' division is a combination of AFC East and NFC East, mostly AFC East. I just basically replaced the Giants with, I replaced the Dolphins with the Giants because, think of it, that's one of 2 huge examples of why are these teams grouped together. Why are the Dolphins in the AFC East and why are the Cowboys in the NFC East? Well, this realignment changes that, and you got all 4 teams grouped together nicely. The Knoll division, like you just talked about, Eagles, Ravens, Steelers, Browns, again, everyone's right there. It doesn't preserve an NFC rival for Philadelphia, but
No.
they get the interstate game with Pittsburgh twice a year, and they get to play
Right.
Baltimore,
Which
who's
is
right
really-
there.
Right.
Baltimore's an upgrade
Steelers
over
would-
Washington to me.
Absolutely. So one, it's a better team, so it's a better game, and closer. So you have the potential there, and you have that natural interstate with the Steelers. The Steelers wouldn't lose either of their biggest rivals, and they would gain one because the Steelers. Steelers Bengals was interesting there for a while, but it was really just because you didn't know if Vontaze Burfict was actually going to kill someone or not.
Right.
But like in terms of a natural rivalry, like it's one of those. Well, I guess it's kind of with them and the Browns too. Like, is there a rivalry if the same team wins every time? You know what I mean? Like, which brings me to a side point. I saw somebody say how, and it was one of those where I caught them saying it, and it just infuriated me. On the Steelers this year, they talked about how clearly Antonio Brown not being there was the reason their offense was so poor this year and
Really?
why they dropped so far in the red zone. And I'm like, listen, I can't for sure say that it's not Antonio Brown not being there. However, when your quarterback goes out after week 1 and doesn't come back, that's probably a big part of it too.
They
You
were
know what I mean?
trotting out a guy named Duck.
Right. Yeah. You were looking. You had guys that you wanted to bring back but couldn't get out of their XFL contracts. So yeah, that was just a side note about the Steelers. But it would take some time to grow. But man, I think some of these would be really cool. I think that some of the underrated ones, I think Indianapolis and the Bengals, that could be a good one. Redskins, Panthers, you want to talk about it? Ron Rivera just went from one team to the other, that would be
Right.
great. And you get the 3 Florida teams with Atlanta. I think there's a lot of potential. Dallas and Houston, man. And geographically, Houston and New Orleans are really close. And you throw Tennessee in there, that would be an exciting division.
Right. I think there's a lot more to gain here than to lose. And obviously you are losing something, but there's going to be give and take for everything. And I don't know. I thought that this was fun. I thought it was a good opportunity, good
yeah,
potential.
absolutely.
And it's just something to talk about, obviously. But I feel like it's going to happen at some point because we've been in this alignment for 18 years now, and if they're going to be changing
Right.
regular season games, and if other teams start moving, it might make a lot of sense. So why not jump the gun here?
Absolutely.
And so yeah, I have another picture here with it by their helmets, which let me see if I can
Yeah.
find it and pull it up and make this a little bit more interesting to look at. I have and I did a fun thing with the helmets, which you probably noticed that I used some throwbacks.
Yes.
And let's see. Here we go. Okay. Actually, before I pull that up, my dad's been texting about it, and I just want to get a few of the things in that he has said. So he asked, which do you think would be the hardest and which would be the easiest in the new alignment? So I'll pull it up. I'll go by the cameras, some current, some retro. So as the current state, like going by the last 3 to 5 years, I
Okay.
would have to say, in my opinion, I would probably go with either Knoll with Baltimore, Philly, and Pittsburgh, and who the heck knows with Cleveland, or Landry because of Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, and Tennessee's resurgence. To me, those are the top two. Now, I think next closest to me would be either Lambeau or Walsh, but Knoll or Landry would be my top two.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think any given year it could be Knoll or Landry. I looked at it. I was like, oh, man. At first I was thinking, the Landry, they had 4 playoff teams this year, but they didn't. But the Cowboys, as much as I love that they didn't make the playoffs, they absolutely should have been a playoff team. I don't know why they weren't. I do know they didn't win enough games, but you know what I mean.
Right,
They should have been a playoff team. But there are 4 playoff-worthy teams in the Landry division. I guess in theory you could make that argument extended out in the Knoll division. You could say if the Steelers have Roethlisberger, they probably make the playoffs. Ravens made the playoffs. The Browns, you could argue, should have been better than they were. Maybe not make the playoffs. So Knoll and Landry. But I look at that Walsh division, and man, the 3 teams, the Rams, the 3 current NFC teams of the Rams, Niners, and Seahawks. Whew. And then you add in the Chargers, who I think are going to figure out the quarterback situation. I don't know exactly how yet, but I think they're going to. And then I think they are going to get it going too. I would put those. Honestly, it's crazy because I look at that Parcells division, and the Bills getting better. Patriots are the Patriots. But again, huge unknown there right now. But if we're going over the last few years,
I would say last 3 years or so.
Right. And honestly, I want to say the Giants, but I've kind of been on the Giants the opposite of what you've done with the Saints. I kind of keep waiting for the Giants to be better than they have been. Maybe next year's the year. I hope not. Don't get me wrong. I love that they're not good, but and same with the Jets. The Giants and Jets both have underachieved the last couple of years. So I really don't think you can count them right now. So I'm kind of on board with you there.
So we're in agreement with who are the top 2 toughest. Really, we went top 4. We said probably Landry, closely followed by Knoll, and then my 3 or 4 would either be Lambeau or Walsh. I'd probably favor Walsh in the current state of things, with Lambeau right behind. Weakest of these, probably based on the last 3 or so years, like you said, the Bills are getting better and the Patriots are the Patriots, but the Giants and Jets are not good. But there's still 2 decent to very good teams there. Gibbs, Carolina has been trending down. Cincinnati's been awful. Indianapolis has kind of been treading water. Not bad. Probably the best team in that division. But the Redskins haven't been good. So Gibbs isn't exactly great.
But here's one of those things, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. Gibbs sticks out to me. the Redskins were in first place in the NFC East a year and a half ago when Alex Smith broke his leg in half.
It's true.
Like, and what was that? That was like November-ish, I think.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Weren't they
how
like
things have
7-5 or
turned.
something like that?
Yeah. They were 7-5, first place in the division. They might have been tied, but like first place in the division, and then the wheels literally fell off. Now, again, they had been treading water and not necessarily doing the greatest over the years leading into that. They hadn't really done much since like RG3 had burst onto the scene.
Right.
But yeah, like you want to talk about how it can go from, man, we could win a pretty good division to we're restarting and now we have a new coach and everything in a hurry.
Yeah. So obviously, sorry, go ahead.
No, that gives division. I think there's some potential there, but they would definitely stick out to me.
And the only other one I was going to add was the Shula division. Just because Atlanta, like I expect bigger things from Atlanta this year, and they looked better at the end of the year. Jacksonville, though, Atlanta to me is treading water, maybe going up after a terrible start last year. Jacksonville is trending down. Miami is, I think, trending up. Tampa Bay, because of the recent acquisitions, is probably trending up. So I think potential in 20, even if we go by 2020, although this wouldn't start till 2021 in my scenario, I still think there's better potential in Shula than there is in Gibbs right now. But that could all change with Bridgewater coming into Carolina. The Bengals probably drafting Burrow. The Colts have Rivers for this season, and the Redskins have Haskins only entering his second year. I think both of those are probably the two worst. They're both in the East. And my distant third would be Stram because Kansas City, I think, rules that. But there's a lot of potential with Arizona. Who knows what Las Vegas is going to give us? And Denver still has an unproven but young quarterback. So they're, to me, the third weakest. Them or Parcells. But Gibbs and Shula for sure or either one of those is the weakest to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you look at, again, over the last few years, that Gibbs division has certainly struggled. And again, a lot of it, you look at it, it almost all has been due to injury. The Bengals have how many injuries every year that they haven't been able to shake. And they just they were a poor team. Their chance was the year Vontez Perfect committed the personal foul against Antonio Brown.
Yeah, was that 4 or 5 years ago now?
Yeah, that's the game they should have won, and who knows what happens after that. But they blew it. The Panthers were doing great until Cam couldn't stay healthy, right? Like, they were a Super Bowl team. He was an MVP, like, caliber player, and it came apart. The Colts were doing great, and then Andrew Luck injuries retires, and the Redskins leading the division a year and a half ago, and Alex Smith breaks his leg, literally snaps it in half.
Reminiscent of Theismann.
Right. Yeah. So like you look at it, huge issues with quarterback injuries in that for all four of those teams, and they haven't been good.
Right.
Imagine that.
Yeah, crazy how there's a correlation there. So the other thing my dad wanted to point out, and this is just to needle you a bit, is that of the 8 divisions, 2 of them have coached the Cowboys. So he just wanted to point that out. No Eagle coaches, but 2 Cowboy coaches is what he says. So,
hey, I would just like to point out that yet again, a Cowboys fan looking back to how the glory of days past. So.
Going back to Tom Landry, not even the Jimmy Johnson division. We're going back to Landry. The other thing he said, and he slipped it in before I mentioned it to you, but then I saw it after the fact, is when I told you that the Eagles were given 2 easy wins for the Browns, he had already said the Browns will have 2 easy wins. So that gets us all cut up there. So I want to move on here and just show you, well, and we kind of glossed over this, but it probably makes sense that if I'm aligning everything by division geographically, we're going to do the same thing with conferences. Gone is NFC, AFC, because there's really no leftover ties to the old NFL and the original AFL. Everyone's been intermingled. We got rid of that. We'll still keep the Hunt and Hallis Trophy because the Bears and Chiefs are in opposite. Oh, no, they're in the same size conference, though. I didn't think about that. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. The Chiefs can't win the Hunt Trophy, I guess. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But Eastern Conference is Parcells, Knoll, Gibbs, and Shula, which is basically the Eastern Seaboard and the Mid-Atlantic. And then the Western Conference is everyone else. Wallstrom, Lambeau, and Landry. That covers you there. So the next thing is how would the schedule work in a 17-game schedule? So to make it easy the first year, in the first arrow diagram I sent you, this is how it's going to happen. So you play everyone in your division just like they do now twice. So from the Eagles' perspective, you'd be playing the Browns, Ravens, and Steelers twice. That makes sense. Simple. The way that I set it up, you would also be playing the division in the Western Conference that's right across from you just to get things started. So in 2021 or whenever this hypothetical situation realignment would happen, the Knoll division would be playing the Stram division. So the Eagles would play the Cardinals, Broncos, Chiefs, and Raiders. They would also be, let's see if I can pull this up, you would play a division in your conference as well. And to make things simple, I just did 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So the Knoll division where the Eagles are will be playing the Parcells division. So that means we'd get Eagles against Bills, Patriots, Giants, and Jets. Right there, you get to play the Giants again, only once, but you still get to play them. You get to play New England, which is great. And then Jets and Bills are kind of afterthoughts in the Eagles' vision, but that's how I set it up. And that goes true for across all the divisions. You're just going to flip-flop. And then you rotate through as the years go on. This is all exactly how they do it now. So none of this is really different. You play one division in your conference, one division from the other conference, and everyone in your own division twice. Okay? So then the last thing here is how are you going to add the last few games? So the way they do it now is everyone in your conference, in the other divisions, the two you're not playing, you play this team that finished in the same spot as you. And for argument's sake, I just had them in alphabetical order. So by city name. So Philadelphia Eagles are there in slot 3 in the Knoll division. They would then play slot 3 in Gibbs and Shula to get this kick started. So the Eagles would play the Colts and, believe it or not, the Dolphins. I didn't set that up. That's just the way it happened. But then there's that last game. So that's 16 games if you're keeping count at home. Knoll division twice, Parcells division, Stram division, and then the Colts and Dolphins. That's 14 games. That's 16 games. You need one more. And the likelihood of that is being another Western Conference game in this setup. So the Eagles would play someone from either the Walsh, Lambeau, or Landry division since they're already playing the Stram division. And the argument is it's going to be in the real-life NFL, they're going to add it from the opposite conference. You're going to get to play 5 teams from the other conference, whereas you only play 4 now. And again, they're probably going to do matchups with the way that you finished. So in this hypothetical situation, the Eagles are in slot 3 in the Knoll, so they're going to play someone in slot 3. They're already playing the Chiefs, so it's going to come from Lambeau, Landry, or Walsh. And because we were flip-flopping 1 and 2 in the East, Parcells and Knoll, we're going to flip-flop Walsh and Stram. You're playing the Stram, so you get the Walsh. So the Eagles are playing the 49ers. So there's my Eagles realignment schedule. That is what it would look like in my hypothetical universe. I think it's fun. It's interesting. You get to play the Giants, keeping that tradition. You get to play the Patriots, which, after the last 20 years, that's always an interesting matchup. And we already talked about getting to play the Ravens, Browns, and Steelers twice. Throw in the Dolphins for, you and me. That would be very interesting for us to get to play every few years and maybe actually every year, depending on how the teams finish. The biggest drawback, obviously, is there is no mention of the Dallas Cowboys. And that was the biggest drawback when it came to creating this realignment, was that some significant rivalries were going to essentially end for the future. Now, it could make it a bigger game when it happens in the regular season. Essentially, Eagles-Cowboys would become what Eagles-Dolphins is now.
Right.
With the only possibility of making it greater is if when the first few years of realignment happening, if there was an Eagles-Cowboys Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, yes, you'd be sacrificing some of those again, when I try and look at it from a bigger picture, like you ask any Eagles fan who their biggest rival is, and I feel like they're absolutely going to say the Cowboys. But I don't know, like, if you ask Cowboys fans. Now, if you ask Cowboys fans from this area, I think they would say the Eagles. But if you ask Cowboys fans from Dallas or from other parts of the country, I don't know that they'd say the Eagles. Maybe they would based on recent history, but I feel like the national story about that all the time is how, like, the Giants and Cowboys, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like on that bigger picture, the Eagles Cowboys hits home for me because I'm an Eagles fan, you know, and the Cowboys fans I know are from here, you know, so like I feel like that adds to it. I'd be interested to know like what, like, is it truly, would the Cowboys consider the Eagles their main rival? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Like, this gets into a complicated discussion a lot when it comes up with Penn State and the whole idea of unrivaled, you know, just because in order for you to be someone's rival, like,
They have to
theory,
reciprocate.
They have to consider you their rival, right? Like, so, you know, I look at, you know, yes, Penn State, Ohio State, there is a rivalry there. It is correct to use that term, but no one there is going to claim that that's the biggest rival because Ohio State and Michigan will always be the biggest rival.
Right.
You know, like, so it just gets complicated, and I don't know. So, like, yes, you're taking some away, but some of the, like, are some of those just produced because they've played 1,000 times? You know, it's not necessarily
absolutely.
because of
Familiarity.
anything other than that. Right.
So it
like,
was always interesting to me how the NCAA football games, RIP, handled rivalries because there was always, like, I think most teams had like 3 to 5 rivals because there may be one main one, but like you still have grudge matches with other teams. And to me, going the college route, Penn State, we never had that one rivalry. It probably should be Pitt. It should be. But the way things are set up, that's not really possible over the last 20 years, and then that loses some of its shine. It should be Pitt, but it's not. But if someone's like, we're making NCAA 2021, it's coming out this summer, you have to pick 4 rivals for Penn State so that it's a rivalry game in the game. You know, you get the bonuses, you get the recruiting, all that stuff. To me, it would have to be, and there is no main rival, so you couldn't even put main rival, but you would pick Ohio State, Michigan, Pitt, and then who do you choose? Do you choose one of the lower teams that make you their rival, so you just reciprocate out of necessity, like Maryland or Rutgers? Like, I mean, but who else is there? Like, I know there's a trophy with Minnesota, but that's not a rivalry.
Right, and you could say Michigan State, but here's the problem with that: Michigan State,
they have 2 other rivals.
Exactly. So, like, I would probably go with like the Maryland because of the recruiting battles that take place there and stuff like that. But yeah, again, like, Maryland may, like, perfect example. If you ask a Maryland football fan, like, you could ask both of them, and they probably would tell you that, like, Penn State's the rival. But, like, look, we're here and we're throwing it in as fourth, maybe just because we have to pick one. You know what I mean? Like, we would never name Maryland as a rival.
Yeah, that's the problem with using Michigan though for Penn State, because we're at best third to them. Like, at best, we could even be fourth if you're counting Notre Dame.
Right. And it doesn't mean that there aren't big, intense games with grudge matches, all that stuff. But, like, the rivalry, like, withstands all of that. You know, it has those ebbs and flows, and it has the streaks of dominance. It has all of those things, and it just outlasts those. And yeah, when we talk about it, I don't really know that that's there. And not to get off of the college thing, but, like, I feel like in the NFL, a lot of it is just manufactured. You know what I mean? When you look at, so kind of like that Penn State Maryland or Penn State Rutgers or Penn State Michigan State, you know, things where they're like the forces that be are like, oh, this should be a rivalry. So like it kind of gets treated like that, even though it's not really. You know what I mean? Like when I think of, to be honest, when I think of rivalries in pro sports, the one that, or in the NFL, the one that sticks in my mind is Steelers-Ravens. And maybe that's because of the games that took place in that like rivalry when I was in college in Pittsburgh. But like two teams that like seemingly hated each other, like going out there, and again, the game has changed a little bit, but seems like a bloodbath every time, but not like cheap shot, dirty hits, just like, you know, we talk about how on ESPN they used to do the jacked up like segment, and you knew if Steelers Ravens were playing, you were going to get 2 or 3 hits that were going to be on jacked up, you know, like, and I just look at like that's a natural one to me.
Yeah.
But like so many of them are kind of manufactured, like or just remnants of it's been a rival forever, like so it has to be now.
Right.
And like I get that that's some of that, but look, you remove you basically switch out the Bengals and Eagles in that essentially AFC North division. But I'll tell you what, it's not going to take long till the Eagles and Steelers is actually a rivalry instead of like a made-up one because they're in the same state.
Absolutely.
You know, and, like that would be insane. You know, so like you are losing one, but you're pouring gasoline on like a tinder fire because you know the Steelers and Eagles hardly ever play. You know, so
right. At best, it's once every 4 years.
Right, and now they're playing twice a year at least, and maybe you get those crazy playoff matchups every now and then. Yeah, absolutely. And think about the potential for that rivalry. You know, oh man.
I think, and you already touched on this at the beginning, but we'll round it out here as we near the end of the show. Going back and looking at it, the division with the most complaints and the ones that maybe are feeling a little slighted would definitely be Gibbs, because Colts, Bengals, Redskins, Panthers, that's 4 different divisions coming together with no history there. I feel like there probably should be more history between Indianapolis and Cincinnati, but there's not. I mean, geographically, they're pretty close together, so maybe something could be created there. Same thing with Washington and Carolina. They're old conference foes, but putting them together in a division might be interesting. But those 4 teams, I think, struggle a bit. I know you said a lack of interest in the Shula division, but I think the 3 Florida teams being together is a nice interstate rivalry there. So those fan bases would embrace that. Atlanta maybe feeling a little left out, as well as Tennessee in Landry. So the only other way I could propose maybe aligning these to change things up a tad would be shifting Atlanta to the Gibbs division with Tennessee. Having New Orleans move to Shula in place of Atlanta, and then having Dallas and Houston play Indianapolis and Cincinnati. So... I mean, that's a possibility, because then you preserve the Atlanta-Carolina connection. I mean, Tennessee's still floating out there, and Washington as well. Indianapolis and Cincinnati still don't have any real rivalry, but you keep Dallas and Houston, which is an interstate thing, and then obviously down in the Shula division, you have the 3 Florida teams plus New Orleans. Right. But no matter what, there's going to be someone left out.
Right. And I kind of look at it, I feel like Atlanta, Jacksonville, in terms of geography, isn't all that different than Atlanta, Atlanta, Carolina. You know what I mean? So like, it would only take a matter of time. And like, if these teams start playing over and over again, you know, like you look at that Shula division. If you were to just like snap your finger and make this happen right now, all right, well, you got Tom Brady there. You've got the Dolphins, who have about half the first round draft picks the next 2 years. You know, you've got Jacksonville, who may or may not think they've got their guy. I can't imagine that.
I don't think they think it's
that Gardner Minshew is their guy the rest of the way. Yeah, I think they – listen, I know my views on Nick Foles are probably skewed forever. I'm forever indebted to him. But I feel like I'm fairly realistic. I'm not saying he's the next great thing, but if you're telling me I'm Jacksonville and I need to build around someone for the next couple years, not even like long term, couple years, I'm looking for stability, I'm keeping Nick Foles. You know what I mean? Like, but that's my opinion. And Atlanta's got it, and like you said, they had a horrible first month and a half of the season, and then turned it around. And actually, were a team where they had dug too big of a hole, but no one would have wanted to play them come playoff time.
Well, they're the ones that went to San Francisco and
Yeah.
beat San Francisco. They beat the NFC champions in their house pretty substantially.
Right, in a game that still meant something for San Francisco. Like, so I think while, yes, we take away some of those rivals, as soon as you start playing some of these, yes, you have those, but we mentioned some of the other ones. All of a sudden, you're getting Dallas and Houston. Oh, sign me up. You're getting the two LA teams. You're getting the two New York teams playing. I think
the pros outweigh the cons. I think the pros outweigh the cons.
In a few years, you're going to have it would be an afterthought, just like we think when we think back to the old division alignments and everything. It would be an afterthought, and not like necessarily that not that how it is now is bad, but like it's just different,
Right.
And it's not college football, so like you can just change it with the snap of a finger.
Right.
That's
This
basically
league's
all
only
it
been
is.
around for 100 years, not 150 years. So
Exactly.
I mean, we just saw it in the NHL a few years ago. They moved Detroit from the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference, and we saw it in Major League
Right.
Baseball. The Astros used to be in the NL. So
Right.
this happens all the time. Teams move. Now this is blowing it up pretty substantially, like a good 70% or so. Like I said, the only one that stays identical is Lambeau. Like they're staying essentially in, I guess, what I was considering the NFC, and with all of their current division rivals. And geographically, it just made too much sense to like change them. I'm not really sure what you would do. You would almost be going out of your way to split them up.
Right.
So
right.
I just think it makes too much sense to keep them together. But yeah, so that's my proposal. So when this happens in the NFL in a few years, we're just gonna have to.
You'll get a little footnote, the Joe Mays realignment system.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Roger Goodell, your people get in touch with my people. We'll make something happen. But I think it's a fun discussion. I think it's certainly something that they should look into when they're adding 17 games. Now's the time to change things. I doubt it's going to happen, but if it was going to happen, now would be the time. So.
Right.
All right. Well, I think that's about everything. Was there anything else you needed to say or do or present, or you wanted to mention from the sports world?
Not that I can think of. No. Sadly.
Yeah. Right. There's not much going on. We had the Tokyo Olympics postponed an entire year, so there's that, which is not good because the Summer Olympics are a ton of fun.
Right.
I prefer winter, but
like, how crazy is this? So, like, in college wrestling, which we both have gotten into a lot over the last few years, like, they allow for Olympic red shirts, right? Like, there were guys who didn't compete on the college level this year taking a red shirt to compete and train for the Olympics. What happens now? It's a complicated thing. It was absolutely the right move. And by that, I mean to postpone it a full year, because these athletes have their training schedule set out so far in advance that they set it to peak at certain times, and delaying it a month or something could be disastrous in terms of what that would mean to training regimens and preparation and all that stuff. Whereas resetting it a year, while disheartening and can ruin some people's chances, I'm not trying to minimize that, it does at least give people a similar cycle where they can kind of just reset and essentially redo the past year, which, again, not to minimize that, that's a disaster, but like it's kind of what needed to be done.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting the way things will shape up, because if you have any interest at all in the World Cup, with them delaying the Summer Olympics to 2021, next year we'll only have 6 months to wait until the Winter Olympics. Normally it's a year and a half. So we'll go Summer 2021, Tokyo, then Winter 2022, which I believe is in China. I believe the Winter Games are in China.
I believe they are
in 2022. Then I think that summer is the Men's World Cup in 2022.
I believe so, which is interesting because the UEFA Championship
Was that supposed to be 2021?
Like European is I believe going to be in 2021, but like if the Olympics are in 2021, it's going to be complicated.
Yeah, are they able to squeeze both in at some point?
I imagine they will. I imagine they'll just be heavy on the international schedule because in theory they were both going to be this summer. So I guess it's not all that different.
Yeah, it probably won't make any difference then. But and then a year later you'll have the Women's World Cup. And then a year after that, you'll have the 2024 Summer Olympics. So there's significant worldwide international events. We just have to wait longer now, because we haven't had anything since, was it Winter Olympics in 2018? Was the last thing? Is that right? Yeah. Or I guess when was the last World Cup? Was the girls last summer?
World Cup. Yeah, they were last summer.
Okay, so Women's World Cup was a year ago, and we were only going to have to wait a year to get to the Olympics. So we're delaying. We're just adding a year in here, and then we're going to kind of be flying through there with a whole bunch of stuff together, which is fun. So I do favor the Winter Olympics, but
we need to get all this stuff sorted out and get everybody healthy and everything, so we can just have sports again.
Right, yeah. Let's focus more on a national or even regional and just get our NBA and NHL seasons wrapped up and then welcome back baseball before we dive into football full time. Oh, real quickly, what is your take on the possibility of college football being moved up 2 months? Have you heard that?
Yeah, so I saw that, and then I saw people ripping it, saying, like, that person has no idea what they're talking about, all that stuff. I think it's a terrible idea. Like, I don't understand that at all. But,
I thought it was being floated by like real people. That it wasn't just like some writer's like proposal. I thought it was.
It was floated by a real person, but I heard that someone else that was in the meeting said that person has like, yes, that was floated out there, but like no, that it has like virtually no chance of happening.
Yeah, it caught me off guard because I was like, why would you? I mean, I understand that their thought is there could be a unfortunate virus revival in the fall, which would be devastating, but I just don't know that infrastructure is in place, both physical and paperwork and organizationally, to move things from the end of August to like middle of July. How do you bump that up 6 to 8 weeks when there's basically is unlikely to be an off-season program whatsoever?
Yeah. On a separate note, who would want to be playing in the SEC in the end of July?
Right. Yeah, that would be brutal. That would be brutal. You think it's bad in the swamp or Death Valley in like the middle of September? What do you think it's like on July 24th?
Right, the best day of the summer.
Well, that would be the worst day for a lot of people. think about how many people would be dropping from heat exhaustion. It wouldn't be enough water to go around. So,
no.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. So that's my NFL realignment proposal, and Justin and I got to talk about it a little bit. I think it works. Yeah, there'll be some teams upset with their new alignment, and yes, a few rivalries will die, but there's a chance for them to be reunited on bigger stages, and new rivalries and fierce competition can spring up, and I think you would see a lot of teams playing familiar faces and teams that maybe you would like to see more often. And it's easy to focus on the Eagles, but Eagles-Steelers I think is a prime example of a game that we wish would happen more often. And
No. We can agree it would be interesting if it happened. I certainly do not wish it would happen more. So.
Yes, that's true. That's true. From your familial alignment, this may not be in your best interest, but I think it would be a lot of fun to see the battles in the new Chuck Noll division between the Browns, Steelers, Ravens, and Eagles.
It would be fun. So.
All right. Well, Justin, thanks for calling in and joining me this evening. Let's do it same time again next week.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks. Have a good night. We'll talk to you later.
Yep.
All right, before I go, I do want to take a moment to wish a very happy birthday to my Aunt Joyce celebrating today, and also my brother-in-law Jason will be celebrating in just a few days. So happy birthday to both of them. Had a lot of March birthdays. Hopefully I've mentioned them all over the last month. But it has been a hectic month. Hopefully April gets better, but we do not expect the coronavirus situation to be completely resolved as the calendar flips to April. So hopefully when it becomes May, there is a much brighter and sunnier outlook. But, until next week, thanks for joining me. This was a fun little exercise. I have no idea what we're talking about next week, but we will have to start talking NFL draft soon, as that starts in less than a month. So this is it for episode 301 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop. Woo-hoo! You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your emails to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as The Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.